In Hamburg, Maria and Peter, a married couple, eagerly awaited the birth of their child. Maria cherished her pregnancy, feeling an endless love she had never experienced before. One night, Maria had a strange dream. A ball of light floated through the house, calling her mom and repeating that it was cold and that it wasn't her fault. When Maria woke up, she immediately knew the worst had happened. Again. Peter called an ambulance, and she was rushed to the hospital. Peter stayed by his wife's side as she hovered on the verge of unconsciousness. Maria was in critical condition, hearing her husband shout for her to keep looking at him. Maria's heart stopped. She saw peaceful visions but was soon brought back to life by the doctors. The loss of the child took a significant toll on Maria's mental state. Moreover, the reproductive specialist treating the couple concluded that she could no longer have children, and another IVF procedure would be pointless. These words felt like a death sentence to Maria, as becoming a mother was her greatest dream. Maria was already over 40, and after enduring 8 failed pregnancies in recent years, her chances were slim to none. At home, Maria wept helplessly. Her last hope for a happy family had crumbled. Despite everything, Maria was determined to have a child, even though her husband was against it. It was evident the doctor was right. Another attempt could be fatal for Maria. Soon Peter was preparing for a business trip to Paris. Before he left, Maria apologized. Peter in turn asked Maria to finally come to terms with the fact that they would never have children. Maria said it wasn't fair. What could be more important in life than family? Peter reminded her that they had been trying for 10 years, all in vain. In his opinion, they needed to focus on something else, or it would end badly. Maria continued to be tormented by guilt toward her unborn daughter. Maria's body had failed her. To keep from losing her sanity, Maria decided to return to work. She was a successful businesswoman and needed to maintain her status. Nevertheless, Maria couldn't stop thinking about what life would have been like if she had become a mother. Maria was desperately trying to return to her old life, but it wasn't going well. She experienced intense panic and couldn't focus on anything. When Maria arrived at the office, Nina, her secretary, reminded her of a meeting with Sasha Simpson from a child welfare organization. Maria said she needed a few minutes. She tried to pull herself together and attended a press conference about lawlessness in the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Many women involved in the illegal businesses run by the Mafia were becoming mothers in such conditions, and their children's futures were in jeopardy. Maria couldn't get this out of her mind. Why were women who didn't want to be mothers given the chance to have children, while those who had everything to offer were deprived of it? Where was the justice? Later, Maria received a voicemail from her husband, saying he wouldn't come home for now because he needed some time alone. Unable to bear it, Maria went to one of their apartments where Peter was staying. Maria needed support more than ever. She wasn't ready to give up. However, Peter wasn't willing to try again. The memory of Maria's clinical death was still fresh in his mind. He had almost lost her. Maria suggested adopting a child, but Peter refused. He was convinced it would be better for them to let go. Only then could they move on. In tears, Maria said all she wanted was to become a mother. Peter was deeply sorry, but he couldn't go back. The couple realized they had no future together. For Maria, money and other comforts meant nothing if she couldn't feel the joy of motherhood. Leaving, Maria called her secretary Nina, and asked if they still had Sasha Simpson's contact information. She also asked for the list of cities mentioned at the press conference. One of those cities was on the Czech-German border. Maria was determined to set out and see for herself how people lived on the fringes of society. Maria dozed off in her car on the highway. When she woke up, she once again heard the voice of her daughter. It haunted Maria wherever she went. Maria's phone rang, but she ignored it. Later, she stopped at a roadside cafe. Her thoughts were still occupied by the thousands of children who needed a mother's love. Suddenly, Maria witnessed 2 animators in panda costumes fighting. Maria began to follow one of the animators, a suspicious dwarf wandering around the parking lot, begging truck drivers for money. This area had a bad reputation. Seeing the dwarf hitchhiking by the road, Maria stopped and offered him a ride. The dwarf introduced himself as Christian. Maria asked her new acquaintance, who had migrated from Canada, how he made a living. Christian explained that he got by with temporary jobs. Maria offered Christian money on the condition that he would accompany her to the town on the German-Czech border and help rescue a child she planned to adopt. Hearing this, Christian asked Maria to stop the car and let him out immediately. Maria tried to explain herself and begged him to stay, but Christian refused to stay. Unwilling to give up, Maria followed him. She truly needed his help. Christian shouted at her to leave him alone, but when Maria promised him 10,000 euros in cash, he changed his mind. All Maria needed was for Christian to help her connect with the right people. In the end, he agreed to get back in her car. There was a reason Maria had chosen Christian. He didn't come across as a threat. Undoubtedly it was a significant risk for both of them, but Christian needed the money just as much as Maria needed to experience the joy of motherhood. She eagerly awaited the moment she could meet her future child. Christian was just as nervous. Moreover, he was feeling increasingly unwell due to withdrawal symptoms. After a short break, they continued their journey. In about 7 hours they would reach their destination. Christian, whose condition was deteriorating rapidly, confessed to Maria that if he didn't get substances soon, he wouldn't make it to their destination. He asked Maria to give him some money immediately. Maria didn't like it, but she had no choice. Christian didn't understand why Maria was so upset about being childless when she was rich and successful. Maria replied that her life felt empty without a child. But obviously a homeless dwarf with addictions couldn't understand that. He had entirely different priorities, such as surviving another day. Maria believed the soul of her unborn daughter was always nearby. She was willing to do anything to have a real family. Even though Christian was helping her for money, she was still grateful to him. Seeing many young women in provocative outfits along the road, Maria felt pity. Christian only smirked, saying some people chose that kind of life. The world Maria lived in was far removed from this one. She asked Christian to talk to one of the women, which he did. But then Christian went somewhere with a woman. Maria had no idea what he was up to. She got out of the car and approached another woman, but this one refused to talk. Maria began calling for Christian, searching for him along the road. Taking advantage of the situation, Christian stole her car. Maria couldn't believe it. Now she was stranded in a dangerous area without a phone. Naturally, none of the women were interested in helping her. Meanwhile, Christian, muttering to himself about how foolish Maria was, drove to a local brothel. But he wasn't interested in a woman, he only wanted substances. However, the establishment's rules required him to pay for a service regardless. Now that Christian had money, it wasn't an issue. At one point Christian heard a baby crying. The baby's mother was one of the women working there. Christian offered the woman money on the condition that she leave for an hour. For her it was a substantial sum, so casting aside her maternal instinct, the woman agreed. Christian assured her that everything would be fine. In reality he did this to save the baby. Meanwhile, Maria was walking along the dark road. Christian found her and honked, gesturing for her to get in the car. At first Maria wanted to lash out at Christian in anger, but when she saw the baby, she was shocked. Christian explained what had happened. He wanted to do something right, just this once. They drove through the night. Maria believed it was nothing less than fate. She asked Christian to stop at the gas station store and buy everything necessary for the child. But Christian insisted on getting his payment first. Maria paid him, sincerely thanking him. Maria booked a hotel room to give herself and her new daughter a chance to rest. Maria hoped Christian would return. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. It was indeed Christian, who had managed to buy everything needed, even though the store selection was poor. Maria lacked experience in caring for children, so she relied entirely on intuition. Christian had never cared for children either. It was something entirely new for him. The most important thing was that the baby was safe. Christian thought Maria shouldn't know where the girl was born or who her biological mother was. But Maria had figured it out. Thanks to Christian, the girl had a chance at a normal life. Another knock sounded at the door. It was room service. Maria was slowly getting used to her new role as a mother. Yet she still often heard the voice of her unborn daughter. Unlike Christian, Maria couldn't sleep. When asked what she would do now, Maria said she would live somewhere starting anew. Christian also wanted to leave his old life behind, though he knew it was unlikely. Maria offered her help if he ever needed it. Maria had waited her whole life for the moment she could give her motherly love to someone. That was what was worth living for. Near the car, Maria was suddenly knocked out by a man shouting that it wasn't her daughter. Maria and Christian woke up in a deserted warehouse. They had been kidnapped by local Mafia members who wanted to know why they had done it. Unable to contain her emotions, Maria said she only wanted to save the girl. But the Mafia boss wasn't going to let it go easily. In tears Maria offered any sum for their freedom, but the boss wasn't interested. When Christian tried to fight back, he paid with his life. Maria couldn't watch. The Mafia boss then forced her to take substances. Maria's mind clouded quickly, and she didn't understand what was happening. Even in that state, she couldn't stop blaming herself for Christian's fate. Maria once again teetered on the edge of life and death. Hearing her daughter's voice, Maria regained consciousness in some abandoned shack in the woods. Hearing the sound of a car alarm, Maria followed the noise. She found the car, but it was locked. Maria looked around. It seemed she was in some abandoned village. The Mafia boss was barely alive, begging for help. Maria grabbed the keys from his hand and drove away. Maria made it to the nearest town and after managing to clean herself up, used a public phone to call Peter for help. Maria had been missing for 4 months, and Peter had nearly lost his mind with worry. Maria couldn't believe she had been gone for so long. Suddenly she experienced a wave of nausea. Soon Maria discovered she was pregnant. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.